Hi everyone, Kathy Rose here, and I'm going to talk to you about the astrological patterns for June 2026. So the sun is traveling through Gemini until about the 21st of the month. However, there's not a super strong Gemini feel to this month because there's a lot going on in the sign Cancer, which brings it more into emotions and feelings. So let me explain. The themes for June, we're going to be focused a lot on development of inner security and self-love. This is really important this month. And also, creativity and intuition will flow powerfully. And then later in the month, when some of the Leo energy gets involved with Venus entering Leo and then Jupiter changing into that sign, then we begin an adventure with blooming and shining. So it's a fascinating month. Let me explain. Let's start off with June 1st. Mercury enters the sign Cancer. And because it begins a retrograde at the end of the month, it's going to stay in the sign for a long time, much longer than normal. So Mercury will be in Cancer until August 9th. If you have planets in the sign Cancer that are going to be hit during the retrograde, which will be between 16 and 26 degrees of that sign, then you're going to be receiving this Mercury retrograde directly, and you get an extra productive time. I am not afraid of Mercury retrograde. As you know, I actually love it when Mercury retrograde makes contact with my chart because it is a time when we experience a new level of clarity and problem solving and productivity. But let me explain this. First of all, the entire time Mercury's in Cancer, um, changes how we think. Mercury is the planet of communication and how we need to think. And in Cancer, it's infused with sentimental energy. It's infused with emotion and feeling. It's not logical. So, Mercury in Cancer is going to be connected more to um, understanding what we say to ourselves and how that makes us feel, and paying attention to if we're feeling nourished and nurtured. So, the woman on screen, the image is a woman giving herself a hug. And this is going to be very important to be aware of. Do you love yourself enough? And do you say nice things to yourself? Feelings can get hurt easily when we have a strong Cancer dynamic. So the retrograde begins on June 29th and stays retrograde until July 23rd. But again, as I said, it doesn't leave the sign till August 9th. So pay attention to that. You know, what we say to each other, people will probably be feeling a lot of sensitivity. Make sure you are saying something nice to yourself and others. And as a matter of fact, for the first half of the month, we have a beautiful energy that develops. Not only will Mercury be in Gemini or in Cancer, sorry, but Venus will also be in Cancer, um, along with Jupiter. Jupiter, this is the last month for Jupiter to be in Cancer, so it's making a very strong statement. But on June 9th, we're going to have Venus and Jupiter conjunct exactly. Now, let me say this. Venus, Jupiter together is usually really beautiful. It's a lot of blessings. It's big, expansive, social, harmonious energy. And in Cancer, it's particularly emotional, sentimental. It's particularly nurturing and loving. Now, the exact conjunction is June 9th, but you're going to start feeling it June 1st. And this will continue until about June 13th. So let yourself receive the beautiful blessings from Venus and Jupiter. And again, like I said, you know, treat yourself nicely, give yourself hugs, say nice things to yourself and other people. And as a matter of fact, you see the mantra on screen. That is one of my favorites, which is a declarative statement. I am love and I attract love. Center your thoughts on lovingness. It's really important. So enjoy this Venus Jupiter beautiful conjunction. Really soak it in. Let your cells be filled with love. On June 13th, Venus enters Leo, and we have a big dynamic change. And Venus is going to preview the Leo energy for Jupiter, which enters the sign on June 30th. And Jupiter spends a year in Leo. And as a matter of fact, you know, the meditation for us on Leo energy is going to be really, really important. There's something spectacular we need to learn as humans about our own inner leadership, about being congruent with self-love inside and outside, about our ability to shine, our ability to be confident. Because coming up at the later part of 26 and in the first 6 months of 27, we are going to have enormous activation with the Leo energy because Mars and Jupiter will be traveling together as Mars goes through a retrograde. It's really spectacular. The nodal axis is going to shift into Leo and Aquarius. So, bringing it back to the now, when we get to the middle part of the month and Venus enters Leo, take some time to connect with the energy that is on screen with this flower. You know, I love symbolism and I get a lot out of imagery. Well, this flower is radiant. It's holding its petals beautifully. It's shining. It wants to be seen. You know, the energy of the flower, it's like I feel good about myself. And the song by James Brown, I Feel Good, that's a great Leo type of song. So start focusing on that and let yourself shine. And then when Jupiter enters Leo on the 30th and stays there for a year, you focus on that. And I'll be talking a lot about that in future videos. And one thing you can focus on with that Leo energy is learning how to receive. The mantra on screen, I am ready to receive generosity and blessings from the world. You know, especially for women, we are really programmed and taught to outflow, to give, to accommodate, to please other people. And what happens for a lot of women is, you know, you get to be 30, 40, 50 years old and you start to feel really fried because you're outflowing all the time and you're not inflowing in a balanced way. So, one of the things Jupiter in Leo is going to teach us, and it's going to start with Venus in Leo, is having enough self-worth that you can say it's okay for me to receive. And balancing inflow and outflow. This is going to be really, really important. So let's talk about the new moon in Gemini for a second. And then I'm going to get back to this receiving dynamic in the next slide after this. So the new moon in Gemini happens mid-month, June 14th, 10:54 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And it's interesting because this new moon in Gemini just offers a little blip of energy that's very different from the rest of the month. And it's actually quite nice because it's delightful, it's flexible, it's more lighthearted. You know, we're going to have this strong Cancer flow um, for a good portion of the month with Venus in Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer, Venus in Cancer until mid-month, Mercury in Cancer the entire month. And so when this new moon in Gemini comes up, it's just like, let's think about it instead of feel so much. So it's a nice little delightful pause. And I call the new moon in Gemini the affirmation moon because there's no better time for you to be very clear about where your thoughts are going, which I talk about all the time with the fact that we have Uranus in Gemini right now. And the purple triangle that you see on this chart, this is talking about a mini grand trine. Well, it's a mini trine that offers really harmonious energy with our thoughts, our thinking, our beliefs. So it's very strong during this new moon in Gemini. So take a moment during this lunation and energize your affirmations and make sure that you are communicating with people, you know, really connecting in conversation, letting your thoughts be very creative. Right after that new moon in Gemini, we have something really interesting happening. Chiron is going to change signs. June 19th, Chiron will enter Taurus. It's been in Aries for 8 years. Now, Chiron's just going to tiptoe into the sign for 3 months, from June to September. And it's going to introduce the concept of what it wants to teach in Taurus. It will go back into Taurus in April of 2027 and stay there until August of 33. Chiron in Taurus is going to teach us about stillness. It's actually going to continue the development of what Uranus in Taurus was trying to teach us from 2018 to 2026. Uranus just entered Gemini in April. So Uranus and Taurus was teaching us about being present, being in the now, being still, and inner security and self-worth. Chiron is going to take that to the next level. It's really quite interesting that they're doing this dance. You know, Uranus developed it for 7 years, and now Chiron's going to develop it for another 8 years after. But we're going to be feeling it from June to September in that little preview mode. And this is nice because it can help ground us. It can help us develop that calm pulse of inner security, self-worth, and peacefulness in the now, which is going to be really good when we get to the later part of this year. All right, so late in the month in June, we're going to have a full moon in Capricorn, June 29th, 7:57 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. A whole lot is happening at the end of the month. Not only do we have the full moon in Capricorn with Chiron in Taurus, so that's a lot of grounded, practical energy. But we're going to have Jupiter and Mercury close to a conjunction at that time. And the next day after this full moon, Jupiter enters Leo. So the day of the full moon is Jupiter's last full day in Cancer in this emotional, sensitive, watery energy. And if this wasn't complex enough, we are going to have Mars and Uranus moving into a conjunction. And we're going to start feeling it around the full moon in Capricorn. The conjunction from Mars Uranus is actually going to be on July 4th. So please make a note. The very end of June and until I would say actually about July 7th or 8th, we're going to be feeling this Mars Uranus conjunction in Gemini, which is kind of agitating. It's high energy, it's electric. It can be powerful on your nervous system, which is why you want to avail yourself of this beautiful grounded Taurus energy from Chiron in that sign. You want to make sure you're grounded and you want to connect with this full moon in Capricorn so that you have a solid plan about what you want to achieve and you have a systematic approach in your habits. So this is a really complex full moon in Capricorn. Bottom line, Mercury goes retrograde on the day of the full moon, a few hours before. So we have this very strong emotional, sensitive energy working with this high electricity and revolutionary energy from Mars Uranus, funneled through that earthy energy that says, now settle down and ground yourself, find a plan, then use this electricity for your highest good. The end of the month of June is really, really powerful. Um, and that mini grand trine is almost exact at that time. You see that purple triangle again. So there's so much opportunity for us to feel powerful. I mean, Venus in Leo, Jupiter entering Leo the next day. There's a lot of opportunity for us to be grounded, to be compassionate, and to be filling ourselves with self-worth and confidence. This full moon in Capricorn is really important. All right, my final thoughts for the month. This is a mandala I created that um, I really loved this one. It was on metal, attached to beautiful golden piece of brushed metal. And it reminded me of Leo energy with grounded energy mixed in. So the practical part of the earthy energy mixed with Leo energy, which really describes what's happening in June. So imagine your heart chakra like that, which is a solid sense of inner security, a solid sense of self-worth mixed with love, not arrogance, not a need to be powerful, not a desperation for applause, but inner validation that is congruent inside and out with lovingness. That really kind of describes what June is all about. And then my favorite quote, and this is another mandala I created that I think flows with this quote really nicely by Georgia O'Keeffe. And again, this summarizes what we need to learn or what we can learn in the month of June. And she says, I have already settled it for myself. So flattery and criticism go down the same drain, and I am quite free. So this is the kind of freedom that that mini trine is trying to teach us. That purple triangle that you saw in the two lunation charts is I am quite free because I've settled it for myself, because I'm congruent with my sense of self-worth, with my confidence, and I don't need flattery, and criticism doesn't affect me. This begins in June, and it's going to be powerfully developed when we get to the later part of this year and early next year. Now, I have this quote memorized because it is that meaningful to me, and I suggest you really take some time to think about what this quote is saying and live it, because that's what June is about. Okay, thank you for listening. Much love and many blessings sent to you. And I look forward to talking to you about the July energy with that Mars Uranus conjunction happening on the 4th of July, the very day the US celebrates the big anniversary. All right, bye for now.